This is lesson 1 from the book Tested and Approved by Tom Lane. In this video session, I'm going to give you some summarized thoughts to apply to your life circumstances. Are you ready? Here we go. Lesson 1 is titled Ministry and Life Are Not Fair. Have you ever noticed that life is not fair? It's a shocking realization for most of us, but it's a fact that we must understand and deal with in our lives. Maybe you've experienced some of life's unfairness as it has frustrated you and made you angry. There are many instances to draw from to illustrate this point. Take the guy who is fit as a fiddle. He's a runner, a gym rat, an outdoorsman who eats what is right, gets the sleep he needs, and yet he has high blood pressure, heart disease, clogged arteries, and dies at an early age. How's that fair? Especially when compared to the guy who eats totally unhealthily. He eats all the carbs he wants with dessert at every meal and snacks in between. He never goes to the gym, and his annual physical is perfect. Low blood pressure, strong, healthy heart, arteries as clean as a whistle, and he lives to be 100. What? That's really not fair. The fairness issue is raised to a whole new level when we're talking about our work. I'm sorry to burst your perspective of the way things work, but you need to know that things will happen in your work as part of your career that are not fair. Consider the guy who is not as well trained as you, not as well presented as you, not as polished as you, who's been in his career less time than you, and he lands the big deal, gets the quick promotion. While you, with advanced degrees, always presenting yourself professionally and dignified, and you work for the most recognized name in the business, with the largest market share of the business in your demographic area, yet some no name is eating your lunch and beating you to the point, dominating the market. Life, ministry, and business are not based on fairness. If you try to understand them from a perspective of fairness, you'll be disappointed and become frustrated and eventually cynical. Life as it is lived out in all its arenas is based on faith. It's based on an awareness and an understanding that God is the creator. He is good, and He has a plan, a purpose, and a role for each of us to fill. The Bible presents accounts of many situations that to us may seem unfair, even unjust. For instance, why did God allow Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den when he had been faithful to God as he served in an unbelieving government, especially since the action that landed him in the lion's den was motivated by jealousy? How is that fair? Or why did God allow young Joseph to be thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold into slavery by those same brothers, then unjustly accused of sexual offense with Potiphar's wife and thrown into prison? What had he done to deserve such treatment? Nothing. How's that fair? What do these stories and these men have in common? When each of these servants of God were unjustly treated, they did not stand on the ground of fairness or allow their perspective to focus on the unfairness that had radically impacted their lives, moving them to blame others or carry a bad attitude. They had to depend, through trust and faith, on God. They committed their circumstances to God to determine what was right and just for them, to trust God to work out His purposes in the face of the feelings and actions of injustice they were experiencing. Their trust was in the nature and character of God. That was the right response to the injustice and unfairness they experienced. That's the pattern for you and me to follow. The reality is that we all will face life circumstances that by any standard of measure aren't fair. When we experience injustice or unfairness, it's time to activate our faith, to turn to God and ask His guidance rather than take matters into our own hands. In the biblical account of Cain and Abel, when Cain's offering was not accepted, he soaked in the pity of unfairness. God came to him and asked, "Why are you angry, and why is your countenance fallen?" God said to him, "If you do well, will you not be accepted?" We could restate this as, if you will trust me and make your responses based on that trust, you will be fine. Everything will work out for your good. Unfortunately, Cain didn't do that but took matters into his own hands and killed his brother because he thought, no fair. Here's some questions to consider from this lesson. What are you doing in response to the unfair situations in your life? Is there a current unfair situation that you're upset about? Take a minute and look back over the last few years of your life to take an inventory of the unfair situations that you've experienced. Dig deep and be honest. Then talk to your mentor or a godly friend about them. You don't have to deny them. Bring them out in the open and talk about them with someone who can help guide you and your thinking. That is what mentoring is all about. Honest, open dialogue. Maybe it's an unfair situation in your family that has you upset. Maybe it's something from a fellow student, teacher, or coach. Do you have a chip on your shoulder because you feel life in general has treated you unfairly? Have you ever been treated unfairly in your professional life? Overlooked for a promotion? Feel as though you've been used or abused by a boss? In response to these unfair situations, have you burned or buried your anger, denying it? Are you mad at God for not acting to right the unfairness and injustice you've experienced? Like Cain, you have a decision to make. You can allow your face to fall, embracing anger, injustice, and pointing fingers of blame, taking matters into your own hands in an effort to bring a just result to the injustice you feel. Or you can open your heart to the Lord and trust Him to work on your behalf. Don't let yourself compare the injustice you feel with someone else and conclude that what you have experienced is so unfair you must act to make things right yourself. Don't allow yourself to seethe with anger over the injustice. Make a choice to take your pain to the Lord. We must realize that life is not about fair, it's about faith. Faith that puts our trust in the goodness and ultimately the faithfulness of God to make all things right.